Hello, my name is George Matos. I am the host, producer, and creator of The Literature Show. The Literature Show deals with books, authors, and ideas, tackling one idea at a time. And this is part 2 of The Case for a Creator. On the last show, we introduced you to the book The Case for a Creator, which is written by Lee Strobel, that deals with Christian apologetics, where he interviews several scientists in relationship to their beliefs in God. We're going to delve a little bit further into that subject, get into a little bit more some of the science and some of the scientific relevancy, and also we're going to deal with some issues of criticism to the theory. And with that, I would like to introduce my co-host, Mr. Trevor Duberry.
It's good to be back again.
Thank you, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about criticism. We've talked somewhat about the book and the idea of Christian apologetics, what apologetics means. You defined that in the first show. And of course, as we said, this is a worldview, even though, of course, we kind of share this worldview, but just as objectivism or anything else, a worldview. But of course, there's other people who have other ideas of worldviews and are very critical. So you're going to bring up a little something about criticism, I believe?
Yeah, actually, several critics note that certain things were missing from the book itself. Obviously, you talk about what the book entails. It's a journalist who happens to be Lee Strobel. He investigates the scientific evidence that points towards God. And one of the criticism, I'll read an excerpt here, but one of the criticism is regarding intelligent design. And it says, intelligent design is generally regarded by mainstream scientific organizations as pseudoscience. Despite intelligent design's fringe status in the scientific community, no anti-intelligent design scientists are interviewed in the book. And I think that is a very, very interesting and good point.
It's a valid point, yes.
Very valid point that the critic mentioned. And I'd like to elaborate just a little bit on intelligent design. Now, I think that as far as intelligent design is concerned, and we talk a little bit about the complexity of the brain, the complexity of the cell, and the DNA itself. If you look at a flower, for instance, and look at how intricate that thing is and how beautiful, it seems that there is some kind of a code, some kind of a design that would cause a flower to appear so beautiful and so perfect. Now, the naturalist might say, well, everything has a particular DNA or a particular code that would cause it to become the way it is, like, you know, my fingers.
Which has an element of truth.
Element of truth, of course. My fingers have a particular DNA, and so they're designed to do certain things, and, you know, that's part of my body. I understand that. And it is true. It is the, again, not just the intricacy of it, but it seems to me that all of what we see in this universe, including the entire cosmos, and how perfect certain things are, it seems that there is something behind. And I'm saying it seems because I'm not the scientist to do all of these research and studies and whatnot. But I will question whether or not these things just happen by chance. The way the brain is designed to think and to imagine, did all of this come just by chance? Can chance cause what we see? Or is it something beyond? Or is it someone or something behind what we see? Someone that designed it and designed it for a specific purpose. Naturalists might not believe, I think the naturalist doesn't believe that this universe has a purpose. I beg to differ, because I do believe that the universe has a purpose. I believe that humankind has a purpose, and I believe that God purpose for us to be here, and He purposed for His will to be manifested through us. So, as far as the intelligent design itself, there's several questions, and maybe the experts, the theologians and whatnot, can question the scientists in regard to intelligent design. But based on my limited knowledge of intelligent design, it seems to me that there is something behind what we see. An architect, for instance, and we did a study on Ayn Rand.
Yep.
You know, she believed in the power of the mind. And an architect can draw a plan, and that plan would be exactly, I mean, it would be very precise, perfect, and build a humongous structure.
Right.
Well, there is a designer, and the designer has to be, or happens to be, the architect.
Right. That's a good point. I don't see how, with the ingenuity of the way things are in the world, which is what you're talking about, with the intricacies and the beauty of flowers and so forth, that could come around just through chance. Another thing is that DNA is both simple and complex. And I think you know what I mean when I say that. There's 4 chemical representations that equal all DNA, whether it's a slug, whether it's an ant, whether it's a human, whether it's a rat, whatever. But because of these different combinations, we have multitudes, thousands of different species of animals. So it would seem that there has to be something intelligently done. There has to be someone who coded the cells, if you will, in order to have that done. The fact that the way things fit into a niche as far as their environment, how they're developed or designed a certain kind of way so that they could fit into that environment, definitely to me speaks to something out there that organized this and so forth. And you brought up a good point when you talked about the brain and whether we believe that consciousness is connected to the brain or not. Imagination you brought out, we kind of talked about this before. You know, animals can think to a certain level because they do have a brain. They may even have imagination to a certain level, but they definitely don't have imagination as we as humans look at imagination. You know, if you put a banana in a room, and you put a monkey, and you put a stick, he'll find a way of getting the banana down because that's to him to eat. That's survival. Okay? That's basic thinking, basic imagination. But can he build a structure? Can he build a building? Can he build a temple? Can he build a highway? Of course not. He doesn't have the ability to.
Right.
Because his imagination is limited. His imagination only deals with that which deals with the regular environment that he's in, and it only deals with issues of basic survival. He's able to figure out how to get a piece of food, and he can think that far ahead, you know, which is, for an animal, you know, fairly sophisticated and has some degree of intelligence involved in it, but at the same time, it definitely doesn't deal with the imagination of a human being. A human being, see, the first thing is for the monkey, he has to see the banana, has to see the object that he can get the banana. Then he can formulate a plan to get the banana. What a human being can do, a human being could look at something that doesn't exist and build it. Whether it's a spaceship, or whether it's an automobile, or whether it's an airplane, or whether it's a road, or whether it's whatever. So there definitely has to be a difference in human intelligence versus other intelligence.
Right.
And why is that?
Well, there's another question that I have to ask, and that has to do with the definition of determine. How do you define determine? The reason why I'm asking this question is, are we determined genetically to be a certain way, to act a certain way? Case in point, you have an acorn. I always still use it as an example, the acorn. Here you have a very small, a very minute seed. Seems very insignificant, but inside of that acorn, there is the oak nest or the oak tree. And later on, after the acorn dies in the earth, it produces this humongous or colossal tree with branches. So